hear the sounds. Not gonna play it for long. Don't want to get demonetized. I mean, restricted, whatever. But enjoy. Okay. Let me do a little filtering here with my chat filter. Um, make sure no food is stuck in my teeth. And we are good to go. I'm going to keep playing this. I am just going to turn it down quite a bit so I can hear it, and maybe you can hear it a little bit, but it will not be that loud. All right now. Plus, I want to put on some relaxing because I have a sneaking suspicion that people will come in here with the crapola, not the money crapola, just the crap. Oh, uh, so yeah. Let's have my trusty army green water container here. Drink water if you haven't yet. Drink water. Iced tea doesn't count. Iced coffee doesn't count. Trust me, I drink a lot of iced coffee. Iced coffee doesn't count. Tea doesn't count. Iced tea doesn't count. Soda definitely does not count. None of those energy drinks count. They're actually working against hydration and they're poison. Stop drinking those unless I get unless I get a brand deal with them, then you can drink that. But until that day where I'm have a brand deal and I'm telling you drink this, don't do it. And know this: if I do get a brand deal with someone, um, and I'm telling you to drink an energy drink, no, I'm lying. And one thing I did tell you folks is that there's some things I will never lie to you about. Um, in order to be monetized, I will never lie about um, things when it comes to academic matters, particularly science, philosophy, history. Now, I may get things wrong, but I will self correct. However, I will never intentionally say anything wrong or misleading when it comes to academic matters, particularly my 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 beloved subjects, which is cognitive science, um, philosophy, psychology. Okay, I'll never lie to you about any of those things or any other academic matters. The other academic matters, I just may tend to make more mistakes on those, but the ones to which are central to my core interests, which is cognitive science and philosophy and psychology, linguistics, I will never steer you wrong on those things, guys. Um, when it comes to things like history and art and literature, I'll try my best as well in those matters, but I won't lie to you about them. I might get them wrong, but I won't lie to you about those. Now, as far and when it comes to martial arts and self-defense, I will not lie to you about those things. Now, if I get a brand deal and I'm telling you to eat a certain supplement or drink a certain thing or other, then yeah, I might be lying to you. But you know the deal with brands, brand deals. That's the name of the game. You really think Michael Jordan was eating Wheaties? All of us kids were eating Wheaties, but we weren't. So anyway, I see a lot of people in the chat room. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Thank you guys for joining in. If you did not catch the topic of my live stream, my friends in the chat room, it is the real reason why everyone has now hates Hulk Hogan. And I think a lot of people, I think some people know why. And I think others have it completely twisted. So most people think the reason that everyone has turned on Hulk Hogan has been that 10 years ago in a leaked audio, we found out that he was making a lot of racial slurs. He was using the N word to refer to black people and to talk about he didn't want an N word dating his daughter, Brooke, um, and things of that matter. And, he's talking with his son, with his son about it. And some people have alleged that this isn't the first time that he's been caught, you know, saying some racially insensitive things. But that's not really the reason that people hate him. And I'm not going to spend 2 hours before I get to the punchline of why people actually hate him. I'm not one of those disingenuous streamers who are going to make you sit around for hours and hours until I actually get to what I actually want to tell you guys. I'm not like that. I'm going to tell you straight off the bat why people, the real reason people actually hate the Hulk. And it's not because of his blatant or apparent, I should say, racism. Rather, it's just the fact that he was a Trump supporter. That's it. That's all. You can leave now if you want. But no, we got way more to discuss because I wanted to break down all the other reasons people say they hate him. And they're not really true. The real reason everyone hates the Hulk Hogan right now, again, is because he became a Trump supporter. That's why. Everyone, all these, a lot of these, uh, a lot of younger folks, particularly a lot of younger Gen Z black folks, are turned off from the Hulk because of his racism. And I get that for the younger generation, but I'm a digging their asses too. No diddy. But the older folks, I'm not buying their BS. Older folks, when I'm talking about older folks, I'm talking about Gen X and even some baby boomers. Those folks who turned on the Hulk, they they're being disingenuous. And so again, the reason why I'm saying they're being disingenuous is because they grew up with this guy and no one knew he was racist, at least publicly. No one knew he was racist until 2015. So you're telling me from the time he started in the WWF in 1979 until 2015, you weren't rocking with him? Nah. If you weren't rocking with Hulk Hogan from 1979 to 2015, it was just because you wasn't a wrestling fan. It wasn't because of some racism that was now exposed in 2015. And now that was 10 years ago, guys. So, like I said, the real reason people dislike Hulk Hogan is just because he's a Trump supporter, and half of the country is so flipping mad at the current president that they hate anything associated with Trump. So if you are a celebrity associated with Trump, then by proxy, you're an evil person. Because in nowadays hyper-partisanship, you can't just you can't just disagree with someone's political views. Um, they have to now it's become not just they have the wrong political views, but they're immoral, and that's particularly on the left. The right does it as well, but the left moralizes their political views in a way that the right doesn't. The right is on some. The right can be on some BS as well. Don't get me wrong. Thank you, Moonlit. Let me go ahead and clip that and pin that message for everyone to see. If anyone wants to contribute, that is my Cash App handle at $ Just A Contrarian. If you want to contribute, help me out. I'm also helping out a friend in the Philippines. So if you want to help her out because she has no home, then you can send that to me on Cash App, or you can send it to me here via a super thanks or super chat. But Cash App, I'll get it much quicker. What's up, Roger? So Roger Godwin says, I'm white, but I love black people and I wish racism would end. Um, I wish it, I wish it too, but I don't believe that's realistic because racism is just a type of tribalism, and tribalism is a part of the human condition, unfortunately. we can't get rid of tribalism because it's literally something that our ancestors, our primate ancestors, had as part of their their mindset. So this has been passed on to us, and it's hard to get rid of something that's been with us for like 2 million years. So, however, we can reduce the effects of racism, and we can teach people to be um, cognizant of it. We can do that. Dank has Hayes says sensitive people nowadays. Very much so, brother. And he also says, "Why is everything quote unquote racist nowadays?" The shit has said, but yeah, people are saying race. Hulk Hogan is racist now. And again, for everyone coming into the chat, again, like I said, the topic is the real reason everyone now hates Hulk Hogan. And by the way, if you're gonna if you want me to answer a question that's not about today's topic, which is Hulk Hogan, drop it in the super chat. I'm not taking questions not relevant to my topic. If you want me to answer a question that's not related to my topic, drop it in the super chat. And I'm not trying to be rude. I just try to keep the I just try to keep the live stream focused. That's all. But that's not to be rude to anyone. All right. Um, anyway, like I said, with the live stream, I'm not one of these streamers that's gonna keep you on the hook for like hours until I finally give you my actual thoughts. I told you right up front why the real reason is. The real reason people hate the Hulk now, Hulk Hogan, that is, his real name is Terry Bollea, is that he was a Trump supporter. That's the real reason people dislike him. It's not the racism, guys. If it were the racism, it would be a lot of people who were canceled already. You have a wonderful day as well, Anus. Thank you. I think that's how you pronounce your name. If not, I apologize. And anyway, that's the real reason. He's a Trump supporter. That's why people dislike him. But hey, I supported Trump as well. Am I suddenly racist? Some well, I have had one Hotep friend claim that I was racist against my own people, but he's just a radical leftist, so I don't take him seriously. And a lot of my friends don't take him seriously as well. Um, and like I said, so I'm gonna dig into the different reasons people claim they hate him, and despite the real reason just being he's a Trump supporter, because I guarantee almost every single person who hates Hulk Hogan or avows their hatred of him or dislike of him are all people who dislike Trump. Guarantee. And to make the reason why you know this is because when he passed away and people were, many people were sorrowful about his death, people were saying um, only MAGA people are Hulkamaniacs. It's like, really? It's like a lot of people who are Hulkamaniacs aren't even remotely political. Half of them are, the other half aren't. So to say that all Hulkamaniacs are MAGA just shows that a lot of people reflexively hate Trump just because, I mean, reflexively hate Hulk Hogan because he is associated with Trump. That is the only reason. People say it was racism that they dislike Trump because of his leaked audio. And look, let's be clear. A lot of people didn't even hear that leaked audio in 2015. They latched onto it in his death to find a reason to dislike him outside of the fact that he was a Trump supporter. That's why. A lot of people didn't hear that leaked audio. Some did. And some was like, that's kind of messed up, but whatever. And I mean, yes, it was a racist statement, but is he himself racist? Yeah. The reason I asked this because some people will be like, of course he's racist. He said racist stuff. But here's the thing: you can say racist things, but not act racist. What do I mean? So, and then there's vice versa. You can say all the right things, but be very racist in your behavior. So they're not the same. So you have people who may say racist things and act racist, and you have people who may be non-racist and do non-racist things. But then you have the mix, where you have people who say racist things but don't do racist things. Then vice versa, you have people who say non-racist things but do racist things. And I'm going to break that down to you guys. Moonlit says he's known in the locker room for backstabbing many other athletes and always taking Vince's side. He's got a lot of wrestler enemies, slept with a few people's wives, known for drunk racist rants, but all that aside is people just looking to hate him because he backtracked. Well, I'm gonna get into that, Moonlit. You're kind of jumping the gun here. That I'm getting into that. I'm getting into all the alleged reasons people, all the alleged reasons people say they hate him, despite the real reason, which is just that he's a Trump supporter. He was a Trump supporter. That's the real reason. I gotta jump into that first. He said, "Fun facts: he got my stepfather arrested and beat up in Vegas." Wow. He's okay. Sorry, just woke up. Yeah, I'm taking. You're a little ADHD, I know, but I try to do things more methodically. So first, I just gave the reason why people hate Trump, and now I'm gonna break down the alleged reasons people say they hate Trump and say why that's actually bullshit. The first one is that he's a racist. So again, I can't say whether he is racist, but he has definitely said racist things. That is that is not in dispute. That he said racist things is not in dispute. Calling black people the N word and saying he doesn't want N word to date his daughter unless they're like an 8 foot successful N word is just there's nowhere to square it. There's no like I'm honest. I told you guys I'm always honest. There's no way to square that circle. That was that was blatantly racist what he said. But does that himself make him a racist? The reason I'm saying this because again I try to bring up the distinction between people who are racist but also and also say racist things compared to the people who aren't racist and don't say racist things. But most people fall somewhere in the middle where they may say racist things, but they don't. They may say make racist statements, but they don't do racist things towards people. And then the converse, which is they may not say racist things, but they may not make racist statements, but they do very racist things to others. And I'm going to bring up salient examples of that. Um, LM says saying racist things is doing racist things. Racist comments disparage people, which is psychological abuse, and since children hear their child abusers. Shut the fuck up, LM. Suck a dick. How about that for child abuse? Shut the fuck up and get the fuck off my channel, you piece of shit. Anyway, so yeah, that's not the same. Saying that something is racist makes is doing racist things is bullshit. That's magical thinking. Like that's trying to imbue words with magical enchantment. The reason again why I say doing racist things and saying racist things aren't the same is because we have plenty of examples in our political history. For instance, Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves, who in his personal diary talked about how he was against slavery, but in public addresses to the nation, he often said that he supported slavery in the South. He just didn't want to extend it into the North and tried to, before the Civil War broke out, tried to assuage the southern states that he would not enforce abolition into their states. Now, privately, he was against slavery and he wanted it abolished, but as a savvy politician, he couldn't say that. Hillary Clinton once brought this up herself, although she's on some bullshit, and I'm about to dig in her ass too. Um, the way Bill won't. But anyway, um, she often said that politicians often have to talk one talk one way in the public, but move in a different way to get things done. And that's what Abraham Lincoln had to do. He had to assuage the slave holding South that he wasn't against them while secretly moving to support abolitionists, and even he he even committed crime to keep to on behalf of the union so that he could win the Civil War. He like he dismissed habeas corpus, like he was locking people up who disagreed with the Civil War, and that's unconstitutional. He would have you locked up if you talked against the war and its purposes, which is to free the slaves. That's how far he went. So he may have talked about, well, I don't mind slavery in the South, and I do agree that these people are inferior to white people. That's what he said publicly, but privately, his advisor was people like Frederick Douglass, who is a quite well-known abolitionist. That was his one of his advisors. He was literally in the fields calling commands like a general. He dismissed habeas corpus and would lock people up who talked against the war and its purpose of freeing the slaves. But publicly, he said he thought that black people were inferior and he had no problem with maintaining slavery in the South. So that's saying racist things while moving in a completely different way that isn't racist. Lyndon B. Johnson, he was he said very racist stuff. He was a hardcore deep South politician. He's he probably said the N word more than the guy from Pizza more than Papa John. No, I'm not making anyone a mod that I don't know. So yeah, no, that's not happening. I only make people mod whom I know and trust. By the way, Moonlit says everyone like, share, and sub, please, if you don't mind. Um, Again, to everyone coming into the chat, this topic is the real reason everyone now hates the Hulk Hogan. Uh, and just know that my mod will throw you out of my chat room if you can't behave yourself accordingly in a respectful manner. You can disagree with me, but you'll have to disagree with me in a respectful manner. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. I encourage debate and rational discourse. But what we will not do is have you throwing insults, because I can throw them better than you. I'm Gen X. We used to just crack on each other for fun. So trust me, I will make you want to come look hunt me down after I cook you. So don't don't start nothing, won't be nothing. So I love black people, but never found a non-white girl attractive. Not gonna lie, that's a personal preference. There's nothing racist about that. That's personal preference. But anyway, so I just gave two examples of very important politicians who said racist things openly in the public, but moved in a different way in their political careers. Abraham Lincoln, like I said, supported abolition privately, um, talked against it publicly, even said that he agreed that black people were inferior, while actively getting advice from a freed slave, Frederick Douglass. He they even for some of these folks who know Harriet Tubman, everyone knows Harriet Tubman as the black woman who led freed slaves through the Underground Railroad up to the north. Did you also know that she was a Union spy during the Civil War? She was a Union spy for the Civil War. Does that sound like a politician who really believes that blacks are inferior, even though he may have said that publicly. Lyndon B. Johnson, he said the N word more than Papa John. He literally said that he that he was going to pass all these left leaning agendas so that he will have these N words voting Democrat for the next 50 years, and he he was right too, because from from that point on, from 1965 till now, black people have been just the strongest voting bloc of the Democratic Party, but that's starting to crumble. Kind of as he predicted. He said he was going to have them voting for the next 50 years Democrat, but that's starting to fade now because we're starting to realize that was fugazi. But however, he used to say N word this, N word that. I don't like N words, this, that, and other. But guess what? It wasn't Kennedy who passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Of course, he was assassinated in '63, so he couldn't. Pe- but the civil rights leaders were trying to get the Civil Rights Act passed since like '61. They didn't get they didn't get that bill until 1964, and guess who signed that bill into law? Lyndon B. Johnson. He signed the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 into law. He also signed the Voting Right Act of 1965 into law. He also signed the Immigration Act of 1965 into law, which got a lot of these current immigrants from the Caribbean and Latin America and Africa over here today, as well as Asia. He also um, instituted a policy called the not the New Deal. That was Roosevelt. It was based. He kind of tried to model himself after Roosevelt. It was called the new something. I can't remember the name, but it was also to help with social welfare reform and all that sort of stuff. Now, a lot of black people today said it was a big mistake, the social welfare policies he put into place, because it ended up destroying the black community because it forced women to choose, choose, free housing, food stamps, and such things like that over having a man in the house. Now we can debate that on a different day. However, I will say again that he increased the social safety net specifically for poor and black people. He passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He passed the Immigration Act of 1965. Uh, and so, yeah, I mean, but he was publicly quite racist. People, he, he, he said very racist and offensive things towards black people and others. But privately, he he bullied Congress into passing the Civil Rights Act. He literally got into some guy's face, took his sausage out in front of him while he was peeing, and forced that guy's vote to pass the Civil Rights Act. Who else? Biden. A lot of y'all love Joe Biden. So now we're going to bring up examples of people who say non-racist things but do very racist things in their political careers. We're going to talk about Biden, Joe, we're going to talk about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, your favorites, or you black Democrats who you just suck on the teeth of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. These are people who said the right things, but moved in a way that hurt black people. Starting with Joe Biden, because he's been in office, he has been in the Congress since the 1970s, and he's ran for president for like 3, 4 times before he finally got elected in 2020. This dude started the 1988 crack bill, the crack cocaine bill. For you young folks, this is when they decided to do mandatory federal sentencing for possession of crack cocaine, no matter how small of an amount it was, while not having, while not doing that for any of the other controlled substances that were currently illegal at the time. Why? Because primarily it was used in the black community, crack cocaine. They didn't do it for powder cocaine. They didn't do it for other drugs non that non-black people were using at the time. Just crack cocaine. Mandatory federal sentencing. It was the 1988 crack bill. He co-authored that, and that wasn't the only time. Then we jumped to 1994, the 1994 crime bill, the crime bill that locked up half of black men in the 90s on some bullshit. He co-authored that bill, and guess who pushed it into, and guess who got it made into law? Your boy Bill J. Clinton and his dumbass wife Hillary. Black people voted for her in 2016 at almost 92%. At about black people overwhelmingly voted for her for about 92%. Forgetting the speech that she made in 1994, calling black men super predators. Super predators. Calling all young black men super predators back in the 90s. And both her and Bill Clinton stumped across the nation to get Congress to favor this bill, co-authored by Joe Biden and made it into law. And there's still people locked up by that bill today. And all that Biden did when he got into office was to apologize for it. Guess who made efforts to reduce the uh, the severity of the 1994 crime bill? One was the person that everyone hated back in the 2000s, George W. Bush. Yes. And guess who else did? Trump back in when he was president in his first term. Yep. But Trump, big racist, right? And Hogan, big racist, right? Joe Biden, while he was in Congress, literally partnered with a white supremacist who was who was a well known white supremacist in the U.S. Congress, and called him his friend and mentor. Look it up. Fact check me. He eulogized Robert Byrd, a freaking KKK leader who had been in office. By the way, these are two different white supremacists. By the way, these aren't. It's not two different ones. The first one I mentioned was a guy who was a white supremacist who still had a half black daughter that he kept secret until it was outed. Then Robert Byrd was a freaking KKK leader. But that was Joe Biden's homeboys. And then what about them little crazy stories of the black guy he called Corn Pop that he talked about in his little demented rantings? If Trump had went on about some crazy black dude named Corn Pop and how he had to beat him up and all this other sort of crazy stuff, people would have been like, yeah, that's Trump being racist, all right. But y'all just turned a blind eye to that for Joe Biden because he was on team left. He was on team blue, right? Y'all turned a blind eye to Hillary calling all young black men, people of my generation, super predators, and convincing people to vote in favor of the 1994 crime bill, which got signed into law by her husband, which sentenced a lot of black men to federal prison for petty crimes. But oh, they say the right things nowadays, so all is forgiven despite the lasting effects of their racist behavior. Yeah. Meanwhile, Trump, big racist, because he says racist things, right? He said that the illegal immigrants coming to the U.S. back in 2016 were a bunch of rapists and murderers. But was he wrong? No, he wasn't wrong. Then we found out last year, you know, through the crime data, that a lot of these people were out, that a lot of these illegal immigrants that were unaccounted for by U.S. immigration services had records, were were convicted criminals, many of them of homicide and SA, and the immigration had lost track of many of these folks freely roaming throughout the country. So was he wrong? No. On top of that, oh, he big racist, right? You know, when Nelson Mandela was freed back in, I believe, 1992. Guess who chartered him a private jet to get to America? Trump. During Hurricane Katrina, I think it was, guess who put up what is that famous singer? You know, she was in that movie with Beyonce and Jamie Foxx and Eddie Murphy and all those guys. I forgot. Now she's famous. She has her own talk show. When her family lost everything, guess who put them up in the Trump Hotel for free? Trump. When Trump found this black homeless woman, he put her up in Trump Hotel for free. Didn't charge her. Didn't make a didn't put it out in the news. This came out later, much later. This wasn't publicized. He just did it. Not for the acknowledgement, just because he wanted to do the right thing to help someone out. When Jesse Jackson ran for president, guess who was a ardent supporter of Jesse Jackson and even funded his campaign? That's right, Donald Trump. All the people who talk ill of him today, guess who were his buddies who act like they hate him now? People on The View, Whoopi Goldberg. She talked so much trash about him. She was a she was a big friend of his back in the day. The Clintons, they always talk trash about him. Hillary talking about his Russia Gate and all that. He went to Chelsea Clinton's wedding. They invited him to Chelsea Clinton's wedding. He was also a huge campaign supporter for them, for Bill Clinton in his run for president back uh, in the late '80s and early '90s. I mean, in the '90s, early '90s and late '90s. That's He was a close friend of the Clintons. He went to Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Oprah talks trash about him, but about 25 years ago, he was on the Oprah show and she told him, "You know what? You should run for office." They were buddy buddy on her talk show. She told him, "You should even run for office." You know why they liked him back then, and now they don't? It's not because he's big racist. Trump used to be a Democrat. Trump used to be a Democrat. So people only dislike you when you're against their political team. That's why people hate Hogan, because he became a Trump supporter. And people hate Trump because he's a Republican. He wasn't all big racist before he turned Republican and made those birther conspiracy statements against Obama. Before then, everyone liked him. You have rappers name dropping him in tons of songs. He even appeared in a few music videos. I clearly remember him in Mace's video. If y'all remember Mace from Bad Boy, y'all should know Mace because he's right now doing one of the biggest sports podcasts with his homeboy Cameron. Murder Mace and Killer Cam. They got a podcast together. Mace was with Bad Boy. He name dropped Trump and even had him in his music video. Yeah. He was also in the Fresh Prince of Bel Air back in the 90s. Black people liked him back then, and he seemed to reciprocate that as well. Back when he first ran in 2016, he even said, look, black people, I know how people are talking about me. He said, but vote for me. He said, what would it hurt to vote for me? Meanwhile, your boy Uncle Joe Biden back in 2020 said to black people, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. The same guy who eulogized a KKK leader, the same guy who said that a white supremacist was his mentor, the same guy who worked against desegregation of public schools, the same guy who co-authored the 1988 crack bill, the same guy who co-authored the 1994 crime bill, and then told black people, you ain't black if you don't vote for him. The balls. No, you're not a mod, Travis. I don't even know who you are, brother. I don't make people mods whom I don't know. Kenny says, how many black soldiers were in the Union Army? I don't know, but there was a significant amount. Originally, they weren't allowed to join. But guess what? You know why? One of the biggest reasons the Union Army started allowing black people into the army, Kenny, was because they started joining the Confederate Army. The Confederate Army fighting to maintain the Confederate States as a slave holding institution allowed black people to join the Confederate Army, and that's when the Union Army is like, all right, well, we gotta let them join, or else we're gonna lose them. Yeah, messy business history isn't it? He says 200,000. That may be true. I can't fact. I don't know the numbers on that, so I can't verify that. But I'm not going to do a thing on the army, the Civil War. That's not the focus of this topic. The topic of this is Hulk Hogan, the real reason why people hate him. I'm not going to be led. I don't want to be taken astray on other tangential subjects. Um, oh, I haven't even gotten to Barack yet, Kenny. But Barack is a tether. I'll just say this here and now. Barack is not black. He is half African and half white. He's not black American. When I say black American, he's not an ethnic black American who's ancestors were were held as slaves in the in the South. His father was a Kenyan migrant who knocked up his mom and got married to her briefly, then went back to his own country. Obama didn't Obama didn't even intermix in the black community throughout his whole youth. He lived in Hawaii and then briefly in Indonesia for several years, so much so that he got to learn how to fluently speak Bahasa Indonesian language. Because if you recall, when he was president, he went to Indonesia on a visit, and he was actually able to speak to them in fluent Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesian. Um, he didn't even in college. He didn't. He wasn't intermixing in the black community. He first went to college at Occidental College in California, a predominantly white, um, you know, liberal arts college. And then he transferred to Columbia University in New York. After that, he got his first taste of being around black people when he became a community activist in Chicago. And let's be blunt. He only did that just to pad his resume. That wasn't a career move for him. He didn't care about black people that he needed to be in Chicago of all places. He went to Chicago because he knew that was a happening place for politics at the time. And after he spent, I believe, just 2 years as a community activist in Chicago, then he went to Harvard Law and then came back to Chicago and ran for office, became a state senator and a law professor before becoming a junior senator in U.S. Congress, and then eventually president. So his only the only time he touched base with black people, besides Michelle Obama, was in Chicago as 2 years as a community activist. Other than that, he had no integration into the black community, and he wasn't black. He's a tether. He goes out of his way to talk trash about black men. That nigga ain't black. Pardon my language. Craig says you ain't black if you don't vote by it. Right, no, right? Uh, sometimes it's Barack the bomber and Chef drop more bombs than any president, but gets the peace prize. Oh yeah. So I'll outline this one tangential, and then I'm getting back to the subject. Yes, the guy got a peace prize literally just because he was the first black president. The Nobel Peace Prize was literally awarded to him just by virtue of the fact that he was the first non white president, because he ain't really black. He's not black American. He's a half African, half white. He's a tether because he doesn't ally himself with the black community. Like, only time he pretends to be a part of black communities when he needed political support from black people, but he did nothing for them in turn for their support. He got like in his first run for office, he got like 98% support. Almost no one gets 98% support. He got 98% support from black people in his first term. It slipped a little bit to like 94, 96% in the second term, but that's still an overwhelming majority. And what did he do for those people in those 8 years? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. And in fact, he even admonished black men for not adhering to the things he wanted them to do, including supporting Kamala Harris just last year. Told he literally told them in a more subtle in a more indirect way that they weren't smart enough to have reasons not to vote for Kamala. He said if you're voting against her, if you don't support her or you're voting against her, basically you're just doing it because you're misogynist, because you guys really don't have good reasons to not vote for her. That's what he literally said this to black people. Like he dressed it up in a more articulate fashion, but that was the summary of what he said, and he offended a lot of black people, and he no longer has most black men support, except for like the ones who are already just bleeding blue Democrats, the ones who are moderates, the ones who are um, conservatives, moderates, the ones who are on the strong, like the radical left. He doesn't have any of them. He just has a very small block of black men who will vote Democrat no matter what. And that's become a strong that has become a shrinking base of support. But yes, this guy won a Nobel Peace Prize and then went on to become to have a secret drone war for like 4 years. In the Washington Post, one of the most left-leaning newspapers in the country, even said that he was sitting there okaying black operations that even George W. Bush didn't approve of in his presidency. I'll say that again. The president who everyone thought was proto-fascist, who got the Patriot Act put into place, that stifled a lot of our civil liberties, wasn't okay with the things that Obama allowed to happen under his watch. That is scary. The guy who instituted the Patriot Act that started an illegal war with Iraq did a war on terrorism that basically just made all anyone who was Muslim or from the Middle East or South Asia into targets of potential of being considered terrorists. Wouldn't okay the things that Obama okayed under his presidency. Held a secret drone war for like 4 years in places like Afghanistan and Yemen and the Sudan and Somalia and Syria. And deported more immigrants than Trump. Everyone hates Trump for his deportations. Again, the left-leaning Washington Post even called that had editorials where they was calling him the deporter in chief. Oh, and those little immigration camps at the border that everyone think Trump put up, that didn't start with Trump. Hell, it didn't even start with Obama or Bush. That started under the Clintons. Matter of fact, when in 2007, when Hillary Clinton and Obama were running against each other, both of them sounded like MAGA. If you listen to what Hillary said, what Obama said in 2007, or if you go even back into the 90s, what Bill Clinton was saying about illegal immigration, you would have thought they were MAGA. They talked MAGA rhetoric before there was a MAGA. And this dude gets a peace prize. And so now mad people mad at Trump for being put up for nomination for a peace prize. Psh, okay, we not gonna we're not gonna even get into our boy uh, from the Vietnam War era who won the peace prize and kept on a secret war going on in places like Cambodia and Laos, which ended up killing hundreds of thousands of people. No, we're gonna go ahead and get back into the subject. King Lang said, "What's up, OG? What's up?" Moonlit says that's very scary if Hillary ever steered the wheel. Yeah, thank goodness she didn't. And then on top of that, she would pander, right? She would pander to black people back in 2016, saying that I don't know, for some reason she thought that made her sound black, saying that she carried around hot sauce in her purse. What, bitch? Like, what? And if you guys think I'm joking, go ahead and Google it, where she was talking about like she likes to carry hot sauce in her purse to put on her food wherever she goes. She thought that made her, and she even started using black scent when she started. her and her and Kamala Harris are both guilty of this. When they would talk to majority black crowds, they would start trying to use black scent. What is black scent? Black scent is when people try to imitate um, black English vernacular, aka Ebonics. So when non-black people or people or even black people who aren't from black communities, try to affect a a the dialect of black vernacular English, which is called AAVE or BVE if you'd rather, black vernacular English or African American vernacular English. When they try to imitate that, that's called black scent. And both Hillary and Kamala were guilty of doing this in speeches when they addressed a majority black crowd, and it was pandering at its worst or best, depending on how you see it. What's up to everyone who said what's up to me? But again, this is why I made the distinction between saying racist things and doing racist things because they are not necessarily the same. As I just said, you can have politicians and public figures who said very racist things in public, like Lincoln, like Abraham Lincoln, right, or Lyndon B. Johnson, while while privately moving in a way to undo racist institutions like slavery, or or allowing black people to vote, or allowing non-white immigrants to come into the country. Lincoln and Lyndon B. Johnson. On the other hand, you can have people who said the right things publicly, but then did very racist things. Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. So, and again, I'm just using them, but I can. But here's the thing: there's a lot of people on Team Blue who have said very racist things, and no one's got mad about them because they're on the blue team. They're on Team Blue. So long as they're on Team Blue, they can get away with a lot of stuff. A lot of people love the Canadian president, despite the fact that they caught him doing blackface when he was younger. Doing blackface, one of the most insulting things you could do. He wore blackface, but everyone loves him because he's Team Blue, right? I mean, not Team Blue for America. He's in Canada, but because he allies himself with leftist liberal ideology and politics, similar to what we have in America, everyone likes him. Just you know, and I can name so many examples of people on the left who've said and or done very racist things, but no one calls them out on it because as long as they're Team Blue, it's okay. But then if they switch to the right, now they're racist. Case in point was Trump. No one said anything. No one said anything about Trump being racist against the the Central Park Five and all that other sort of stuff back in the day until he became a Republican who talked against Obama with that birther conspiracy. Then he became big racist, and before then, everyone loved him on the left. People loved him on the right as well, despite being a Democrat, because he was a real estate mogul and he was a savvy businessman. So people still liked him on the right despite him being a Democrat, and then people on the left liked him because he was a Democrat at the time and he supported Jesse Jackson's run for office. He brought Nelson Mandela to the United States after he gained his freedom in 1992. He supported the Clintons in there, when Clinton ran for office, and was so much a friend of theirs at the time he was invited to Chelsea Clinton's wedding. But now they talk about him like he's so evil. Oprah talks trash about him about being evil, but back in the early 2000s, she told him he should run for president. Whoopi talks trash about him like she's like deranged, like she has what the so-called Trump derangement syndrome. If anyone has that, Whoopi has it. But they used to be really cool friends. People on the left loved the Hulk Hogan, till he was a Trump supporter. It wasn't about him being racist. You got black people today who have defended that man in his death with everyone talking about, oh, he's racist. Look, I have a friend, the friend who told me to start this very YouTube channel. He showed me a picture of him as a kid with Hulk Hogan. He told me he spent the whole day with Hulk Hogan and a bunch of other classic WWF wrestlers when he was in transit traveling. Who would go out of their way to spend time with a black kid if they hated black people? They weren't getting paid to do that. They were on their own time. Like no one paid them to hang out with my friend. But I mean, you got people like Devon Dudley who's defending him and calling out people for their hypocrisy. You know, and he's not the only one, by the way. There's other black wrestlers who come out to support. Dwayne the Rock Johnson. People might say, well, he's not black. He is. His father was a founder. Dwayne the Rock Johnson's father was a foundational black American, and his mom was, Hawaiian. But if his father was foundational black American, he was black American. Then the Rock is black. Also, Mark Henry. Mark Henry came out to pay tribute to him and talk about all these so-called haters. And here's the other thing about this whole called racism thing, right? A lot of people who criticize the Hulk Hogan for saying some racist stuff, mind you, in a private conversation, say racist and offensive things all the time in private conversations. It's just the fact that they aren't public figures, so they haven't got caught and called out on it. How many? And I'm gonna take this out specifically to the black people. A lot of you say a lot of racist stuff about Asians and Latinos and Indians and white people in private conversation with other black people. But you're the very same people who get offended when you hear a non-black person say anything anti-black. You're hypocrites. You're hypocrites. You just aren't a public figure, so it doesn't matter. On top of that, some of you even have the audacity to believe that a black person can say anything offensive that they want because a black person can't be racist, and that's just completely completely absurd. Anyone can be racist. It's not about who has power. That's institutional racism. What defines a racist is having racist behavior towards other racial groups. That can be anyone, including black people. So a lot of black people are quite racist against other groups. I have to admonish friends all the time when I hear them say words like chink or spick or other things, and I don't like hearing that because even though I'm not Latino, although I may have some Latino ancestry, but whatever, that's a story for another day. And I'm not Asian, although I do have an Asian wife. But even before I had an Asian wife, and even before I knew I had Latino ancestry, even before I didn't like didn't like hearing people say racist things about those folks. I remember I admonished my Indian friend. I had an Indian best friend for a long time, and uh, from the end of high school throughout college, who used to talk about Asians all the time and Spanish people. I'm like, dude, that's not cool. Because one of my roommates was a Taiwanese guy, and I found out later when we all hung out at the mall, he had called them a chink. I'm like, what the? Why? He was like, yeah, my bad. I just, I'm like, that's not cool, dude. I was like, what if he called you a such and such? And I have to say that to one of my black friends all the time. He's always using those terms. I'm like, dude, that's not cool. Now I may make racial jokes. We all make racial jokes. Let's not lie. Let's not kid ourselves and say that none of us have ever made racial jokes. If you say that, you're lying. That's the difference between making racial jokes and using racial slurs against people. I'm not going to call someone a racial slur just because I dislike them. What I think about them does not apply to their whole race. And he says, and that goes as far with Jewish people too. Like, stop. It's anti-Semitic to say certain things, and people pretend it's not because, oh well, I'm not really anti-Semitic. I just don't like Israel. Well, that's still kind of anti-Semitic, brother. It's like, first of all, you're saying that these folks can't have their own country, despite there being like literally dozens of Muslim countries. So they can't have one country that is their own ethno state when there's literally dozens of Islamic states, Islamic nations, but they can't have their one. On top of that, it was never meant to only be Israel. It was always meant to be Israel and Palestine, but the Arabs at the time refused it, and they continued to refuse it, even when your boy Clinton was in office and tried to make huge steps to for a two-state solution with Arafat and the Israel Prime Minister at the time. But that's a, I'm not going to go down that tangent. The point is, a lot of you who are also screaming racism against Hulk say racist things all the time, but you don't you think it's okay because you're not white. So you think just because you're not white, you can say racist things. But if a white person says racist things, then they're evil. But you can say all sorts of things about Jewish people and Latino people and Indian people and Asian people all day long and act like it's okay. And you're hypocrites, straight up. So we got that one out the way. Now we about to go to the next alleged reason people say they dislike him. Just going through the comments. But hello to everyone in here. If you caught me mid rant, then you probably are lost. Don't worry, I will summarize it up again. Thank you for anyone who said bless me or that Jesus loves me, although I'm not religious myself. However, I will get into that as well when it comes to Hogan. Here's the other reason. People are saying that he's a piece of crap because of how he acted in his professional career. Now, I'll give you that he has done some slimy things in his career. My thing is, show me a celebrity who hasn't done some questionable things in their career, and I'll show you someone who's not a celebrity. They said he's backstabbed people and that he may have slept with people's wives. I don't know. But do you know how many celebrity males are womanizers? Over half of them. At least over half of them are womanizers. Let's be honest, most men want to become celebrities just for the fact that they can have access to women, unfettered access to women. Women become famous not for access to men, but for the money and the glory. Men become famous for the money and the pussy. Oh, he said that. Oh, yeah, I said it because it's true. Women love fame and fortune for its own sake when they become celebrities. Men like fame and fortune for its access to women. So most straight men who become celebrities are womanizers. Next, oh, he was slimy. He screwed over a lot of people. That happens. I don't justify it. I think that's kind of slimy, you know. And also look at the industry he was in. Pro wrestling. Pro wrestling itself has been a problematic industry. To become successful in an industry where it's been wrought with a lot of controversy and troubling issues, you probably had to be part of that problem itself to do well in it. And so did he backstab some of his wrestlers, some of the guys at the time? Yeah, that happened. I won't justify it. I won't defend it. It was wrong. But as many people who are his detractors who talk about how, how he screwed them over when he was still an active wrestler, there's still dozens of wrestlers who also defend him, who talked about how he helped them out, who talked about his kindness. Look, people are messy. And the thing is, some of you have to grow up. You act like a celebrity is either going to be all good or all bad. And just like you, most people are messy. People are messy. Celebrities are messy. Regular people are messy. He's done some fucked up things in his career, but he's also been very kind to a lot of people. That's why he has people defending him to this day. Black people defending him despite the racist stuff that he said. No one's defending what he said, saying it's not racist. What they're saying is we can look past that because we know as a person what he's done for a lot of people, including black people who were his friends or people who looked up to him. So we knocked that one out. All right, let's get into the next. You got these old black people who dislike him, despite some of them. Look, some of the old black people my age or older who dislike him, a lot of them never even watched pro wrestling in the first place, so they never had any bond with him. So they kind of are. A lot of them are just plain irrelevant, and this goes to the young people too. A lot of them never grew up watching pro wrestling, or if they did watch pro wrestling, the younger people never saw him when he was active in his career. So both the old people who never watched wrestling and the young people who never watched wrestling, or they watched wrestling in their day and age but not in ours in the 80s, they never had they never revered him in the first place. But the ones who did revere him and then turned it back on him again, it's because of politics. It's not because he was racist. It was not because they found out he was a fucked up celebrity. Look, Michael Jordan was really messed up. We saw that little document. Oh, I didn't watch it because I'm not gonna let someone smear my boy. But you know, we had that documentary come out talking trash about Michael Jordan. Look, people need to people need to realize that when you pedestalize someone as a kid, once you become an adult, you realize this person has flaws, like we all do. And then once you become an even older adult, you realize that you can still like this person despite their flaws. And that happened with me with a lot of my childhood heroes. Hulk Hogan, Jean Claude Van Damme, Bruce Lee, Michael Jordan. Look, almost all these guys I mentioned. Oh, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. Um, who else? Probably think of some other people. But look, some when it comes to sports and sports entertainment, there are people who transcend the sport and become the embodiment of it. For most people who came up in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, the Hulk Hogan was the representation of pro wrestling. Just like in the 80s and 90s, Michael Jordan was the representation of basketball. And, in the 80s and 90s, Mike Tyson was like the representation of boxing, or even earlier, 70s and, for people, those 70s babies, it was Muhammad Ali, who's the greatest of all time, the GOAT. Even Mike Tyson says that Muhammad Ali is the GOAT. Um, or Wayne Gretzky when it comes to ice hockey. I'm not going to just use black people. and so the and so Hulk Hogan was the king of wrestling for a lot of folks. Now you can choose, if you don't longer like that person, that's fine. But you sitting there looking for reasons to dislike the person when the real reason is politics is disingenuous and hypocritical. Because a lot of your other sacred cows are quite flawed as well. It's just they're on the political team that you ally yourself with so you can look past their issues. But look, all those guys I mentioned, they were womanizers. They wronged people in their career and done sketchy stuff. Some of them dabbled in drugs, whether it was steroids or cocaine. Despite that, we still see these guys as legends for the living legends they are, or the ones who passed away. All right, rest in peace, Hulk. Rest in peace, Muhammad Ali, and others. They they transcend the sports or whatever they've done, right? So you and here's the thing when it comes to like again like people like Van Damme or Hulk Hogan or Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson, you can dislike that what that person did in their private life while still revering what they did in their career. We you know we we can look at them as just flawed heroes, right? Hulk was an alleged womanizer. He screwed over some of his colleagues in the WWF. He, he made, he's made some anti-black racist statements. But however, he was charismatic. He he was like pure Americana. He helped out a lot of folks. He was generous to people. He helped out The Rock. He, and he put the sport on the map. Before then, people wasn't checking for pro wrestling like that. It was a very niche thing in the late 70s and early 80s. They were all you know, and all these little wrestling groups were all like splintered across the country until the before they were all solidified under the WWF and WCW. Um, Michael Jordan, womanizer, gambler, screwed over some of his colleagues in the NBA, but he was the best at the game. People weren't looking at basketball like that before Jordan came back in like what was it, 81, 83, whatever. People weren't checking for that, for basketball like that. It was all about football and baseball. but no one didn't care. I mean, no one cared about basketball like that until Jordan came. No one cared about wrestling like that until Hulk Hogan came. Or Mike Tyson. He made people want to get those little pay-per-view uh, boxing matches just to see if anyone could actually knock him out. Uh, Spoiler alert, they didn't. um, this is why he finds kinship with Jake Paul, because he remembers at the height of his career, people were literally just pay, buying the pay per view events just to see someone finally knock him out, kind of like people would do with Jake Paul now, right? Although I don't defend Jake Paul's like boxing acumen by any means, so don't think that I'm saying that they are alike in their skill. I'm not. Just saying that a lot of people tune in to see Paul get knocked out, and back in the early '90s, people tuned in to see Mike Tyson get knocked out, and it didn't happen. Um, Van Damme, I loved Van Damme as a kid, man. He it was he more than any other martial artist and martial arts actor that really made me want to learn like martial arts. I mean, I had learned martial arts before I knew of him, but that's only because my parents started making me take judo or karate classes when I was like 7. But it wasn't until I started watching his movies that I really become an avid martial arts fan. And then, later on I found out, this dude was a womanizer. He kept cheating on his wives and then marrying a new woman, that he abused cocaine, that sometimes he hurt his stuntmen and stuff like that. And that's when his career fell. But then he had a renaissance after his film J.C. where he just kind of put it all on the line and was kind of honest about you know his problems, and it saw a kind of resurgence and reconnaissance and um, a rebirth of his film career. I've even turned my wife onto some of his movies. um, who else did I mention? So I said, Hulk Hogan, of course, Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Jean Claude Van Damme, Muhammad Ali. We know that Muhammad Ali was a very much so a womanizer, and and he was pretty brash at the time, so he got under a lot of people's skin. A lot of people wanted to see him get knocked out by Frazier and other people of the time because he was brash. He became a he became part of the Nation of Islam. You know, like I said, he was a womanizing type dude, and that was problematic for a lot of people. Again, despite all these guys' flaws, people still revered them not for their personal lives, but for what they did in their respective in their respective industries. People love to see a champion. Hulk Hogan was a champion. Mike Tyson was a champion. Michael Jordan was a champion. Muhammad Ali was a champion. Van Damme, believe it or not, before he became an actor, he was a kickboxing champion. But he became like synonymous with martial arts action movies of the late '80s and early '90s. It was him and Steven Seagal, so they had a rivalry. Guess what? They patched up their rivalry last year. Van Damme came out to see Steven Seagal for his birthday, so they patched up that rivalry. That was like a that was a like a 35-year rivalry. Well, I would say since 1990s. It was like a 34-year rivalry. They patched that up. And so again, when people say they hate Hulk now because of his racial uh his racist statements, or the fact that he was a, you know, he mistreated his coworkers and undermined them to get to his success. All that's true, but a lot of people's heroes today, whether we're talking about politicians or celebrities or athletes, have done just as much underhanded things or said pretty vile things, but they like those people despite all that because those people share the same political views as them. And let's just be completely honest. A lot of people will overlook a lot of ungainly things that people say or do as long as they feel that they are part of the same political team or the same religious team. So that's where I wanted to go with that. Again, I'm ignoring most of you guys' comments that have nothing to do with my topic. I told you, if you're going to address me with irrelevant statements, you got to put it in the super chat because I'm not responding to statements that have nothing to do with my topic unless you put it in the super chat. If you want my wisdom, you're gonna pay for it. I didn't go to college and grad school to give away free knowledge to a bunch of mouth breathers at 1 o'clock in the morning because they sucked on too many energy drinks and can't go to bed, or they got mental health problems, or are probably autistic, or have mental dysfunction. But like I said, those are real reasons. So to summarize, the real reason people now, the the real reason everyone now claims to hate Trump, I mean, claim to hate Hulk Hogan is because he became a Trump supporter. That's the real reason. It's not because of his racial stuff 10 years ago. There are some people who dislike him because of his racial rantings, his racist rantings 10 years ago. And those were the people who are already juiced up to hate anything that was anti-black. I get that. But a lot of them are disingenuous because a lot of them have no problem saying racist things against other groups. But when they hear it against their group, and I'm talking about black people here, then they try to they turn hypocrite. Then you have again, and then you also have people who can't make the distinction between people who say racist things, but people who do have racist behavior, and those are two different things. Because you have people who say racist things but have been very non-racist in their behavior towards other groups, and he even went out of their way to help those groups. On the converse, you have people who have, you know, don't say racist things publicly, but have displayed very racist behavior, especially as politicians, where they've undermined other groups through their political leverage, and that pertains to a lot of Democratic politicians. So much so that Malcolm X literally said 60 years ago, "Beware of the white liberal wolf." Anyway, um, then you have people who dislike him because, you know, he was a bit of a shark in his career and a womanizer. Again, you can say it about most anyone at the top of their game in any respective field as a public figure, that they've done some underhanded things to get to the top. And you have a divide with maybe a lot of older black people who grew up with him as a childhood hero, and younger people who never saw the uh, Hulk Hogan as a hero. A lot of younger people who've never watched pro wrestling, or if they do watch pro wrestling, they've never seen the Hulk when he was at the height of his career back in the mid 80s, and don't know the thrill of watching Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3, at the height of his career, body slam Andre the Giant. That was at the height of his career. He body slammed Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 in 1987. or play with all the wrestling toys they had out back then. I had some I gave away to my nephew and to my sister threw them away because he didn't play with them. So now I gotta rebuy my Hulk Hogan figure that I gave away to my nephew, thinking he would love these toys. But he didn't grow up in that era, so he didn't care about those toys, even though they were vintage and probably worth a good amount of money now. That both Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan are gone. Those are both worth lots of money now. And I also had a few WCW wrestlers. Um, or watching WWF Rockin' Wrestling on Saturday mornings, watching WWF SmackDown on USA on the weekends, or SummerSlam, or seeing a Hulk turn up in movies like no his first when he first turned up in Rocky 3, fighting Rocky in a in a demo in a promotional match, and then later in his own movie No Holds Barred, it was the breakout movie for Debo, Tiny Lister Jr., who aka Debo from Friday. That was his breakout role in No Holds Barred, and right after No Holds Barred, he joined the WWF briefly as well. Or when he was, or when Hulk Hogan was fighting alongside Mr. T, someone who's racist. He sure did hang out with a lot of black people. A lot of black dudes think pretty highly of him who've known him. It's the ones who didn't know him that think he's whatever. But again, it all basically boils down to the fact that most people dislike him now just because he came out as a Trump supporter. That's it, and that's all. So with that being said, if anyone has any questions, I'll take them now if it's on this topic, and after that I'm gone because I got some fruit snacks to get to before I go to bed. Talk to the wifey. TK says, "What's a super chat?" Sorry, I'm new to YouTube. It is that image on the screen with the dollar sign with the with. Can you describe it to them only because I can't see it on my side? But it's a dollar sign and like I think a heart or whatever, and it's three different supers that you can use. So during a live stream on YouTube, you can give someone a super chat, which means you can leave a comment, and you send them a donation, and it lights up your comment for the entire chat room to see, and respond to it. And usually the streamer seeing your super chat will make sure to take priority of your comment above everyone else's to get right to it, because especially when you're talking about a live stream where there's like literally thousands of people in the stream or hundreds, like comments just fly up and down the chat room, and the streamer is not going to catch those, but he'll be able to see the super chats, like those will be um, um, pasted on screen for him to comment, whereas all the other regular comments will just be streaming down the chat room. The other type of super is a super sticker, where instead of it being a comment, you can just donate to your streamer, and it'll show like a sticker plastered across the screen. And then the third kind is called the gems. I think that YouTube stole that idea from TikTok, from what I heard, or Twitch, whatever. But these jewels that you can donate, that 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 you can give to your favorite streamer and podcaster, will come across the screen as an animated image, like a GIF. For those who know what a GIF is, an animated image that will come across the screen with a gem, and you'll see like a little jewel type thing across the screen. Moonlit says bottom right side of your screen, TK. Thank you, Moonlit. There's also a fourth type of super, but that's only for like pre-recorded videos, which is a super thanks. The super thanks allows you to send a donation to a person, um, and it will come and it'll show up as a comment in the comment section as well. So you can leave a comment, or you can just leave that donation, and the person will see it. The content creator will see the super thanks in their comments section when um, when you leave it on a pre-recorded video. So those are the four ways. And then also, if you don't want to do that, you can just send it to my Cash App, which is I've pinned to the screen at dollar sign just a contrarian. I also have another way people have also contributed to me in the past, which is called buymeacoffee.com. This is a way for content creators to generate revenue outside of YouTube because YouTube always takes a cut of it. And buy me a coffee is literally to buy me a coffee. Like, in, anyone who's been on my live streams during the daytime knows that I drink a lot of coffee. So I like buymeacoffee.com because I literally will use that money toward if you send me money on buymeacoffee.com, I set aside that money specifically for my caffeine uptake. um, and by the way, on Buy Me a Coffee, it's called buymeacoffee.com, but you can switch it to buy me a beer or buy me a pizza. So if the content creator is a wants beer, you can say, here you go for beer. And you can donate whatever amount you want. Or they might put, instead of buy me a beer or buy me a coffee, they might put buy me a pizza. But the website itself is called buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com. So I have those. Also have some other things, but I don't put them on here just because I don't want to give I don't want to inundate people with too many options. When you inundate people with too many options, they're not going to do anything. So I just leave it simply as either you can drop me a super chat, or or you can send it a Cash App, or you can do buy me a coffee. Any of those three are fine. Um, but yeah, um, and sometimes I do things on my channel to try to, you know, show my show my respect for the people who support me. So last year I wasn't even monetized yet, and I told people, like, look guys, like, um, I have a cute wife, and I'm not going to show her on screen until I get monetized. So as a thanks to everyone, when I finally reached 1,000 subs, I started having her on, and she's done like half a dozen different streams with me. I've also shown her in videos and shown her traveling in exotic parts of the world, in Indochina and parts of the Philippines you never heard of. Most people know of, you know, Manila and maybe a, AC, Angela City, notorious uh, the notorious entertainment district, maybe in Alangapo and Subic Bay, another notorious entertainment district. But they haven't seen the places that she's shown, and I've put it on here. Or I've had her in Indochina. She was even in Burma, the place a lot of people haven't been to because of the civil war going on there. She was in Burma last year. I let people see that and had her come on and talk about it. Being in Burma, aka Myanmar, she did an entire trip through the Indochina. That was her little dream. That was her dream vacation, was to tour the entire Indochina. So I told her to do it solo because that was always her dream. So I told her, do that by yourself, and then the next time I'll go with you, and we'll do, we'll stay even longer. So, but she toured the entire Indochina, Burma, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand. Anyone asking what the stream about, I'm not going to answer because it's literally, the title is really literally posted on here before you click on it. Anyhow, um, so yeah, so that was the thing I did once I got monetized. Well, first when I got 1,000 subs, and then when I got monetized last year, I put my wife on, and we talked. We did a lot of good stuff. Um, and now, my goal now is to hit 10,000 subs, and I asked people in my on my YouTube wall, what would you guys like to see when I hit 10,000 subs, and I gave a couple of choices, and the overwhelming vote was for me to show you guys the Bruce Lee 1 inch power punch. So that will be what I do when I hit my 10,000 subs, and that is my goal for the end of this year. Hit 10,000 subs. Still got uh, 8,000 more subs to go. But when I hit 10,000, that will be what I do. I'll show you guys the 1 inch Bruce Lee punch. Well, it's not really the Bruce Lee didn't start it, but he made it famous. So that's why people call it the Bruce Lee 1 inch punch, because no one ever saw anyone do it before he did. But it comes from kung fu, obviously. Anywho, that will be the thing I will do for you guys. I will do it on video and show you. I will once, for one, I will do it on video, and I'll also show you how to train to develop it. So that would be what I do when I hit 10,000 subs. And for people who always say who are you talking to when there's not a lot of people in the chat room, do understand that I do upload these videos after they are done recording so that a lot of people will see it, and that I get ad revenue for the for these videos. So shut the fuck up. Ew. Yeah, moving on. So unless anyone has any questions about the original topic, which is Hulk Hogan, that that's where we'll leave it for tonight. So if you're not talking about Hulk Hogan, we have no rap. I have no rap if you're not talking about Hulk Hogan. And Chris, I'm from Baltimore. Um, but yeah, so if you're not asking me anything relevant to why I said the real reason people actually claim to hate Hulk Hogan, throw it, you have to put it in the super chat, or I don't care what you think on stuff. So I'm gonna end it here in a few minutes unless I have any questions. Mullet, did that answer your question? What I was when what you brought up earlier? Because I told you I was gonna get to what you said too, Mullet. I just said I wanted to do it methodically. Like I wanted to go from saying the reason why people dislike him, or the at least the avowed reason they claim to dislike him, then go through all the different reasons people actually claim that they dislike him, and dismantle those things, and then go back to the original thing, which is why they actually dislike him. Hey Agatha, what's up? I didn't even see you in here. You didn't ask a Hulk Hogan question. You just put his name in a sentence. You're retarded. I'm sorry. You're mentally dysfunctional or autistic. Putting sticking a proper name into a sentence doesn't make that the object of the subject of that sentence. That's not how grammar works. And you're disingenuous, so eat a dick. What's up, Agatha? She said I'm silently watching. I'm gonna just kick this idiot out. Chris said I like Hulk Hogan, the New World Order. Yo, the New World Order was slick. Cause again, this goes to like if you were a kid in the 80s and then you became like a teen in the 90s and you saw your childhood hero turn heel, that was the biggest thing, was when he turned heel, when he, with the New World. People was like, yo, because people never saw like I don't know how to describe it. That's like that's like seeing, I don't know, like Santa Claus become I, I, I don't know, start working for Satan or something, or seeing Superman start working for Thanos. I mean, not sorry, for the dark side. That's how big that was when Hulk joined New World Order. That was that was the joint. And then even when he came back to the WWF, he was still like he wasn't like bad, but now he was like this anti-hero. He became Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He said I never actually knew how Hulk Hogan died. It was so he died this week of cardiac arrest. Yeah, he unfortunately he died at cardiac arrest at the age of 71, and a lot of people were worried that it had been tied to his health complications several years ago that he had, but his wife said that it wasn't actually tied to his health complications he had years ago. They was She said that he after that had happened several years ago that he was actually doing pretty well, and that makes me and that reminds me of one other thing I wanted to address, particularly to a lot of black folks and others. Is that let's be honest. A lot of black people are Christians, right? I'm not. I'm not, by the way. I have nothing against Christians, but I'm not Christian. I'm not even remotely religious. But a lot of black people are religious. Do do they know that after the leaked audio of Hulk's racist rantings came out, not only did he formally and publicly apologize for it, do you know that he later gave his life to Christ? A lot of people don't know about that. He he became a born again saved Christian towards the end of his years. A lot of people don't know that. so you would think so you would think that a lot of black people who are Christians would see Hulk Hogan as a brother in Christ and not mock and ridicule him in his death. How unchristian like can that be? Like I said, especially if you're a Christian person. Chris says I was a kid when NWA, Kevin Nash, Big Papa Pump, Sting. Yeah, man. Like I didn't watch WCW like that, but I knew about the New World Order because my cousins used to watch WCW. So when I was with my cousins, I would watch it with them. But I was like I was just a hardened WWF fan. Like if it wasn't WWF, I wasn't watching. The only thing that I used to watch outside of WWF religiously was Glow. Remember gorgeous? I don't know if you remember that Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. And then there was PLW and there was Glow. PLW was Powerful Women of Wrestling, and then Glow was Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. And of course, as a as a boy, I watched it just to see these half naked women wrestling. I mean, a, why wouldn't a, a straight kid enjoy seeing half naked women wrestling? So Glow, I used to that was the only other type of wrestling I watched religiously outside of WWF. It was Glow and briefly Pow. I think Pow only lasted like one season, maybe two. Nah, I think it only lasted 1 or 2 seasons. But Glow, I watched Glow all the time. Glow and WWF. Never got into WCW that much, but I knew of several of the people from WCW, particularly like people like Ric Flair, and then I remember when a lot of WWF people jumped ship and went to WCW when WWF was having problems. So I remember all of that. Uh, Skinner said, "Did you listen to Hulk's audio?" I didn't listen to it. I just read the transcripts. I didn't hear it, but I saw the transcripts verbatim, and yeah, it was heinous. I'm not like I said. If you just came into my stream, I said over an hour ago I won't neither justify nor defend what he said in those leaked audios because it was heinous. However, in both his public and private life, he didn't have problems with black people. Like I said, he has several black men who are also wrestlers come out to defend him. People like Devon Dudley, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, um, and others. Um, So, like I say, I'm not going to defend nor justify what he said. I'll just say that in how he actually treated people, it was different. Even Mark Henry, like I said, defended him. I mean, he hung out with people like Tiny Lister Jr., aka Debo, um, Mr. T. And yes, everyone slips up. And then, like I said, another thing I find very hypocritical is people. Let's be honest. All of us in our private conversations has said stuff that, if it were to leak, it would be really bad. let's keep it a buck, right? All of us has says things privately that if it were to go public, we would be it would be highly regrettable for us, right? Not just racial things. People say a lot of stuff privately that are impolitic, and especially black people. A lot of black people say a lot of racist shit about other groups privately. We talk about other black immigrants. I mean, we talk about black immigrants. We talk about Latinos. We talk about Asians. They talk about Jewish people, and then we think it's okay because we're black people, so we can't be racist, and that's not true. Anyone can be racist, and it's not right to say things just because you don't think other people are going to be privy to it. If you know that if they were privy to it, it would be hurtful to them. But yeah, everyone slips up. So I'm not going to suddenly crucify someone who's my childhood hero for having flaws, because all of our heroes are flawed and we ourselves are flawed. It's just unrealistic to think that someone's going to be on their A game in every aspect of their life. Oh yeah, he is from the South, Skinner. He's from Hulk Hogan's real name is Terry Bollea. He's from Georgia. He's the, and you can hear it in his voice too. You can hear how he talks. He's that Hulk Hogan was definitely a southern man. He was from Georgia. He said Liam Neeson slipped up too. Oh yeah, remember the little racist rants that Liam Neeson had. But again, people got mad and then they got over it. You know why? Because he's on the right political team. As long as people, and that like I said, that's the real reason people nowadays say they hate the Hulk is because he became a Trump supporter. If he was an avid Harris supporter and an avid Biden supporter, no one would care about that stuff. They would have been like, "Oh, that's messed up," and then they would have moved on. That's it. That's all. If he was a if he was if he had supported Clinton, if he had supported Biden, if he supported Harris, they wouldn't have had nothing bad. Most of these people would have had nothing bad to say about him. It boils down to him being a Trump supporter, which is why half the country hates him and half the country loves him. Meanwhile, and then they said anyone who's a Hulkamaniac is MAGA. I'm like, no, we're not all MAGA just because we like Hulk. We like Hulk. We grew up as Hulkamaniacs as a kid because when you're a 6 year old kid and you got some cool dude that's like 6'5", swole, talking about yeah, brother, blah 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 blah, and then he goes out and you go to a WrestleMania event or just a regular wrestling event and he looks at you and smile and shakes your hand and maybe picks you up and puts you on his shoulder, he becomes your hero for life. It had nothing to do with his politics. What's up, Cynthia? Agnes is so true. No one is perfect. And like like I said, I've brought up so many examples of in the past of people who have said racist stuff, but have worked to undermine institutional racism. Whereas you have had people who said all the politically correct things, meanwhile undermining racial groups. So people are imperfect. But if I had to choose the imperfect person, I would choose the person who maybe says racist and offensive things, but then works to dismantle institutional racism, as opposed to the person who always says politically correct things, but then goes out of their way to undermine racial groups with whatever leverage they have, either as a public figure or as a politician, like Joe Biden did back in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, Chris says people take private conversations when you're heated and air it. If they said something private, it would be wrong too. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like most people, a lot of people talking about he's racist are hypocrites because a lot of people claiming how much they hate Trump. I mean, well, Trump too, but how much they hate Hogan for the things that he said. say messed up things all the time. Like I said, I had to admonish several friends throughout the past for saying things about Jewish people and Asian people, Latino people. Because I'm like, yo, that's not cool. Even though no one's privy to the conversation between the two of us, we're the only two privy to this conversation. But even in private conversation, I'm like, yo, don't say that about other people privately when you know you would be upset if they said that about you in a private conversation, and you would be ready to fight if they said it to you and to your face, right? So that's how I am, and I'm not perfect either. I make racial jokes too. Chris says I'm a black man. I started to get black fatigue when I see some black people acting a fool. There's no excuse because I wouldn't act like that. Oh, very much so. I've actually done a few videos on black fatigue. I actually have one called Black Fatigue. If you want to check that out, it's in my list. It's in my listing of live of my pre-recorded live streams. I save all my live streams. There's only one live stream that I never saved. I mean that I deleted, and that's just because it got demonetized. So it was like no point in keeping it up since it wouldn't be able to um, have ad revenue. So but other than that, I've kept all my live streams up, so people can feel free to check out any of my stuff from the past. And like I said, you can hear me saying offensive stuff in a lot of my live streams from the past as well about certain groups. The difference is I'm not a hypocrite. I don't get mad at stuff that other people say when I know I've said offensive things and I know that other people have said offensive things. Like it says, I endure lots of racism at work most of the time because I'm two of the black people in my job. Yeah, that sucks. You gotta kind of just take it on the chin, so to speak. But anyway, it's late. It's 1:05, and I've been talking kind of for like 2 hours now. So, I mean, unless anyone else had any comments, I'm gonna wrap it up. And then, like I said, if you want, I don't mind people making comments that are outside of the subject of the live stream. You just gotta put in a super chat. That's all. Because otherwise, like if I took every comment that wasn't about the topic, it would be completely derailed, and I would never get to the actual topic of the stream. That's why I say. That's why in my format, I say, "Hey, drop it in the super chat, and I'll answer it." TSG says there's only one race. Some have more pigment. Yes, in a way, that's true. There's only one race. That's the human race. I get that, but there are. I'll say it this way: there are different racial populations, right? There are different racial populations, but yes, the human race itself, as race is defined in scientific biology, is all one race. That is true. Um, but anywho, again, I'm gonna go. I got some fruit snacks to get to, guys. TSG says we adapt to our climate we live in. Yeah, I mean, so for some people, they saw it as a matter of geography, and people. There was a time like about 25 or so years ago that people wanted to replace um, uh, ra- race and ethnicity with um, clades or clines, which was that people differ by geographic variation, which is true. But the thing is, those differences in geographical variation do offer slightly different biological differences as well. For all the people who say, all races bi- are biologically indistinct, that's not true because physical anthropologists can successfully categorize um, people by their people's race just by their skeleton remains. Pe- Physical anthropologists can use the skeletal remains to correctly identify people's race. So there is something about race that is biological. Not only that, we know that in medicine that there are different uh, illnesses that attack people by race, like Tay-Sachs disease, predominantly with say Jewish people, people of Mediterranean descent, um, with sickle cell anemia in sub-Saharan Black people, and many other types of illnesses. So you have biological illness, you have biomedical illnesses that attack particular groups, you have racial groups that can be identified through skeletal remains, and we have differences in psychological traits based on people's racial identities, such as IQ and stuff like that. So just goes it goes to show that race is an actual biological construct. It's just a very messy one that most people get wrong because they base it purely on skin color when it's not. So, anywho, I'm out, guys. Good night, Agatha. Talk to everyone later.